I guess we are live now. Yeah. Awesome. Hello, everyone. I don't know who's going to log on. So let's just give like everybody a minute. Let's see if somebody wants to hop in. And if not, we'll just
grab a
start.
hot beverage.
Yes. I have my cat mug. I collect cat mugs. I love cats. I'm a cat person. So yes, I'm guilty of that. So yeah, okay, well, let's get started. Basically, for those of you who are joining us, if you want to leave a comment in the chat, please put your name if you have a question, because we can't see who's actually asking the question. But yeah, so today we're talking about owning our shit, and we have Heather Thorkelson here, and I have your book. It's so good. I've been reading it. I'm really slow at it right now because I have like, my other work and stuff. So maybe you want to do like an audio version so I can like listen to it while I'm cleaning and stuff.
An audio version is on the way, actually. It's happening.
Yeah, awesome.
Because
I feel like I listen to a lot of audiobooks and like podcasts, and it's usually when I'm cleaning up or like doing the dishes, because I'm just too busy like to actually sit down and actually find the time to read. And I wish I did have more time, but I don't. So anyways, yeah, so I will introduce myself. I'm Jessica Hanlon, and I am a branding photographer and brand strategist. I help entrepreneurs build their visual branding. And I actually worked with Heather. She was one of my clients, and it was really fun getting to photograph you in Stockholm and just walk around, and to meet your amazing husband, by the way. He was awesome. He's really cool. And yeah, so Heather has written a book. And so I want you to first introduce yourself and just let everybody know a little bit more about you. And then we can get into owning our shit and letting ourselves get visible online.
Yeah, sounds great. So yes, my name is Heather Thorkelson. I, like Jessica, I'm a transplant from elsewhere, and I live in Sweden. I'm originally from Canada, but I have lived all over the world for the past almost 27 years now. Sweden is my 7th country outside of Canada. So as you can imagine, being an entrepreneur, having a portable business is very important for me, because I need to be able to make a living wherever I am in the world. That being said, I'm not planning on leaving Sweden anytime soon. But my book, No Plan B, a handbook for incurable entrepreneurs and other rebellious souls, which I just launched last October, is an amalgamation of 10 years of entrepreneurship. And my primary business is business coaching, and that's been the case since 2011. So it's been my main focus for since the beginning, let's say. And I've done all kinds of stuff during those years as an online digital entrepreneur. I've run group coaching. I've done one-on-one. I still do one-on-one, of course. I've run masterminds. I've done challenges. I've done international retreats in Iceland and Peru with entrepreneurs. I've done international speaking gigs, and I've kind of gone through the whole gamut of what you do as an online business owner. And over the course of time, figured out which things light me up the most and which things work best for my lifestyle and my personality type and my energy level. And so it's been quite a journey. So all of that is essentially distilled into the book, No Plan B, which is a business book that's not about how to run a business. It's about who we need to be as an entrepreneur to really put our best work into the world. So it's a little bit more of that sort of mindset, personal development type approach, but with real life examples from the 10 years that I've been in business. And I should say that even though I'm a business coach and that's my primary thing, I own a polar expedition company, strangely enough. And with my husband.
And you talk about this in the book. I think it's great.
I do. Yeah, I use a lot of examples in the book. So I have a polar expedition company, and I just opened my 3rd company with some Norwegian partners. Now I'm part owner of a ship management company, and we manage a 53-passenger Russian icebreaker vessel that goes to the polar regions.
That's so cool.
So that's me in a nutshell.
That's amazing. And I love that. I think that's what I connected to you most, was like when you said Peru, because my mom's from Peru. I was like, oh my gosh, you lived in Peru? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know, you never really like meet that many people that have been there. So that's where I was like, ooh, I need to know more about this girl. And you have so many interesting stories in your book. And I love how you made it so easy to just read. And it's almost like you're talking to a friend. It's really casual, but like straight to the point, like, you know,
Yeah.
snapping your fingers, but like it's cool. But I'm really enjoying the book, and I'm only
Nice.
halfway through. But I thought it was really timely to just have you come in and talk about visibility, because you do touch upon this topic in the book, and you call it owning your shit. And it's really like owning your shit. I mean, all of us, we have like a lot of mindset things that hold us back in our business, and I'm one of them. I've also had a lot of things that I had to work through. And I think the cool part about being a business owner is that you learn to own your shit as you go through your business experience. Because when you work for somebody else, you just like ride through the waves and you're like, okay, I'm doing my thing. But then when it comes to your own business, you actually have to like start to face things that show up, and you're like, wait, I didn't think this was going to be like a self like help, like, you know, learn to take care of myself and deal with shit in my life that I didn't want to deal with, but okay, I'll do it now. And it's kind of like that, right? So I think that's the interesting part about being a business owner, is that like when you sign up, you're like, I'm going to just start something, and I'm going to like do this, and I'm going to do that. But then there's like little things that get in the way, and sometimes it's ourselves, right? So so this is what I liked about the book, and what you had to say is that like we have this like limitless sandbox to play in. And right now, more than ever, we have these opportunities to actually impact other people's lives globally, instead of just being in one little bubble and like expecting to only like work with people nearby us. But actually we can impact tons of people's lives globally, and you know, with the power of technology like this, being on the computer, we can actually help people with our skills, with our knowledge. And you know, as long as we're like delivering on that, I think we have to be able to like be bigger than our vanity and our like self-doubt, to just go out there and help other people. And I think once you like have that idea in your head that I'm helping somebody else versus like, you know, oh, it's all about me. And, you know, I think that's where you have to like shift the mindset, right? So I wanted to talk about this with you today, because I think like you have a chapter in the book where you talk about this, and like you give like some tools on how to deal with this part. So how would you like to cover this part? Because I think like, you know, there's a lot of things that like, there's so many things that hold us back. Like, I'm not good enough. Who wants to hear me speak? Somebody's already done this before. So like, there's a million other brand photographers or brand strategists. Like, why me? So like, you want to like distill this, or like?
I can dive in, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, actually, really quick, one of the comments was that like fear of criticism. So I don't know if you want to touch upon that and stuff, but you can go ahead and like put your take on this.
Definitely, yeah. So what I like to always say, and this is also in my book, is that being an entrepreneur is just a constant process of getting over yourself. You know, as you said, we tend to like, we open up shop, we're like, oh, here I am, I'm a brand photographer or whatever, I'm just going to do my thing. And then you're like, oh my gosh, now I'm visible. You know, and all of this stuff comes up. And it comes up for every single person. And I think that's something that's really important to know. Even the biggest, like the Oprahs of the world, they've all gone through this and continue to go through it to some degree, right? We all have that feeling of like exposure, vulnerability. Oh, everyone can see me now. Even if it's only 2 people seeing you, it's still 2 more strangers seeing you today than didn't see you yesterday, you know? I mean, we've all had that experience of hitting publish on our very first website and going like, like, it's real now. People are going to judge me if my business doesn't work.
I'm not good enough. Nobody wants my services. And then,
because you hit publish and you're like, oh, and then nobody hires you in the beginning, because that's not how it works, unfortunately. And then you're like, everyone hates me. So I think it's really important to understand that like that part of the process is normal, and it's not going to go away anytime soon, especially because the internet is really oversaturated right now with everybody, with coaches, with photographers, with lifestyle brands, whatever, right? There's just tons of all of us everywhere. And so it takes some time to get some traction for people to actually care about you and your work and connect with you and want to hire you over the next person. And that's okay. Like that's part of the process. And that's something that I try to talk about normalizing in the book as well, right? It's like, give yourself some time. This is the long game. If this is the path that you've chosen, you have to build up an asset that people care about and an asset that's worth owning, meaning your business and your brand and the know, like, and trust factor between you and your audience, you know? And so in terms of, I'll just jump ahead to the criticism thing and then go back again to owning your shit. So the criticism piece, like, what if people don't like me? What if people think that I'm stupid or whatever? It's not your business. It's really none of your business what people think about you. You know, and I know that's really easy for me to say, and it's taken me years to get to that point, but it's true. Not everybody is going to like you. It is literally impossible for everybody to like you. A lot of people won't like you.
And that's what I say with personal branding. It's all about that. That's why you create the images to actually attract people who want to work with you.
Exactly.
And if they like you, they're going to stick with you. And if not, well, then they're the trolls who are just jerks and they get off on this, that kind of stuff.
Totally.
But yeah, it's definitely like putting yourself out there and just knowing that the right people who are going to be right to work with you or choose you over somebody else, it's because of your personality. It's because of the way you speak. It's much more than just like, you know, the product that you sell. It's a combination of things. So, and that's why I say to my clients is like, you have to be super clear about what you want to do and who you serve. And when you know that, it's really easy to speak and not feel that self-doubt because you know it so well that that the fear goes away. So when you know something so well, and it just comes easily. So that self-doubt and that the fear of not being smart enough or knowing enough, which I've had, I had that in the beginning of my like photography career. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still like, you know, learning how to use the camera. Like somebody calls me out, like, you know, I would get like really scared about that. But like the more I've done it, the more confidence I got, you know, and that's the thing. Like you have to just, I think being really clear about like what you do is going to also help you move past the fear of like putting yourself out there.
Yeah, for sure. And owning the stage that you're at, like you bring up a really good point, right? Owning the stage that you're at. So yes, some people might criticize you because you're not, like in the early days, you're not the best photographer out there, but like, of course you're not when you're still in your early stages, right? Or whatever it is that you're doing, you know? And I think that not misrepresenting yourself is really key. And that helps you avoid imposter syndrome and avoid being worried about being criticized because you're like, hey, I'm not promising anything that I'm not, right? So as an example, when I first started as a coach, I would tell people, I started before I even graduated from my coaching program. I started charging people. So I put out my website that was homemade by me. It was really crappy. And I said like, hey, it's like $200 a month to work with me or something, you know, 4 calls, which is like now I cringe. But I mean, then like that's what I felt. I was like, that's so much money to ask people to pay me. And it was like, you know, it was a lot of work. It was intensive work with people. But anyways, I started out with that. And I said openly, I'm still in my coaching program. I am not a certified coach yet, but I want to help people. I'm ready to help. I've got like reasonable prices so that I'm accessible. Who's in, you know? And I got clients. And then as I got better and I got testimonials, I started raising my prices. I started changing the language of how I worked with people. And then also because in the early days, I wasn't making a living off of my coaching and I had no job because I had left the corporate world, I needed to bring another income. So I took a course called Girl's Guide to Web Design, which no longer exists, but it was amazing back then. Learned how to make basic websites, and I started offering like really cheap and simple website builds to other people in my entrepreneurial communities. And I wasn't over promising. I wasn't saying, oh, I'm an amazing web designer. I'm like, look, I can get you something that doesn't look like a pile of crap. And I can get it to you in 3 days and it's going to be really cheap. Who's in, you know? And people were like, ooh, you know, and they paid me like $300 or $500 a pop to build these websites for them, you know? So their expectations were reasonable because they knew what my skill set was and I knew what I could deliver. And you know what I mean? So I think when you're starting out, whether it's branding or photography or whatever, you don't have to undersell yourself and say like, I'm not very good, but you can just say, here's a sample of my work. And, you know, I've been doing this for 2 years and I'm building up a portfolio. Do you want to work with me? Da, 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 da. And maybe there's some trade-off in there as well, right? And this can help with the fear of criticism or fear of imposter syndrome. You can say like, depending on what it is that you deliver, I have like for the next 3 months, I've got this package that's really reasonable rates. You get your, like, let's use photos as an example. You get your photos and I'm going to make a case study out of you or something. And then they're like, ooh, I want to, you know, like that sounds cool. You know, so you can add in little things that make it more sexy for people to be involved with you. And also understanding that like the expectation of perfection or of like the highest end photos, that's not what they're going to get for what they're paying for, but they're going to get a different level of engagement or dedication from you because you are in those earlier stages of building things, you know? And again, this all ties back into owning your shit and like being really honest about where you're at and just being okay with putting yourself out there without being perfect, right? It's setting those expectations. I see a lot of people who start off, they don't have the experience that they need, but they get like, they pay a ton of money for a beautiful brand and a beautiful website and a beautiful photo shoot, but behind it, they don't have the credibility, they don't have the testimonials, they don't have the body of work. And then they're like, why is nobody hiring me? And I'm like, because people, they look past the shiny outside pretty quickly these days, you know? They want to see your body of work, or they want to see whether or not you care about them as a client, right? And that's a whole other bag of nuts we can go into, but I think that that's really important to remember. Branding is super, absolutely critical and key, and branding should be unique to you, but there has to be something behind it that shows people that you're worth hiring.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I do get people contacting me like, you know, I want branding photos. And I'm like, great, can you tell me a bit more about your brand? And they don't know. And so as a photographer, this is how I got into branding and really knowing about branding, because I actually had to know this to understand what their brand was about. And sometimes people didn't even know anything. They were like, I don't know, I do this. And I'm like, yeah, but tell me more. And they would be like, well, I just do this. And then like, do you know how you want to do the photos and things? Yeah, well, I don't know. And so it was a lot of lack of clarity that I actually, when I created my online course, I had to put this clarity part as like the big beginning, because it's the most important part of building a brand. You have to know what your mission is, what your values are, what you're trying to portray, because as a person trying to make that visually come through the photos, I have to understand it myself. And if I don't understand it, then your people won't understand it. So this is how I got into building brands and helping people with actually the branding side, because that lack of clarity was the thing that was like not like, it was hard for me to actually deliver on my promise if they couldn't tell me what it was. So, so this is really important to know, is that like, yeah, you have to know this part first. And I think once you know those things, that makes it easier for people to feel confident to show up online to talk about what they do, because then they really, really know what their business is about, right? And I think this is the part that a lot of people skip. I don't know if you've noticed that as like a coach, but I started to realize it myself, because I did it myself. When I started my business, I was like, I'm going to be a photographer. And then I was like, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then I'll do this. And I didn't really ever think about it until I met like another photographer who critiqued my work. And they were like, yeah, but you're doing too many things. You're like all over the place. You're doing babies and weddings and this and that. And like, you know, like how are people supposed to really know what you're going to be really good at? And so for me, it was like the portraits that I really loved. And so then I started to like chisel away. But of course, like I said before, building a business, it's like, it's a slow evolution, and your brand is basically a living, breathing thing that is also evolving at all times. It's like, it evolves with you, but you change and you chisel away little things and you're like, okay, this doesn't work. Next, like, you know, that, and you just kind of like start to get down to like the core of what it really is about. So, I mean, now I'm really clear about like what I want to do, but it took me a while. And that's what like building a business is. It's never just like, it never stops. If you're going to have a business, it's always going to continue to like
Evolve.
present different things and evolve. And so like, that's kind of how I like found my way into this world of branding, because that's kind of what I started to get really excited about. And I was a graphic designer before I actually was a photographer.
Okay.
I actually went to school for it. So branding for me was actually really fun. And I was like always doing logos, and that was my thing. I loved like that stuff. So it only made sense for me to kind of move into like this kind of field. And so I'm really happy that I found my way here somehow. And I love that, like, you know, the path of being a business owner, it's never one way. It's like, you have to go, and it's true, you have to go around to figure it out. So
yeah, it's true. And you know, I think the challenge as well, and it's something that I discuss in my book, is that in the traditional school system and in the traditional work system, we're trained and we're geared towards learning one thing and serving one function. And when you work for yourself, you're all the things and you're serving all the functions. And nobody knows who they are as an entrepreneur when they start out. Nobody can get brand clarity right from the beginning that's going to be the same thing that it is in 5 years, right? Exactly. All you can do is start where you're at in that moment and go, well, this is who I think I am right now, and here's what my values are. Here's who I think I want to work with, and here's the people I definitely don't want to work with, because knowing who you don't want to work with is super important. And now I'm just going to go through a series of experiments to figure out what my business is going to look like. You know, what's the sort of core foundational pieces of my business, which again will probably change over time. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned earlier on that I tried so many things over the years as a coach. You know, I did group programs, I did international retreats, I did this, I did that. And all of that was me going down that path of figuring out actually who I was as an entrepreneur and how I wanted my business to look. And now I've arrived in a place that I really like, but it's probably not going to be the thing that works for me 5 years from now. There is going to be another point at which I have to evolve, because we all grow out of things, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you know this actually, Jess, but I used to have a different brand. So right now I'm just Heather Thorkelson Consulting. But for 6 years I had a brand called Republic of Freedom. And I had a rabid following. Like I got this is so strange. I got like recognized in the street a couple of times by people who were like, Republic of Freedom. And once it was in a back alley in Cusco, Peru at night.
Oh, wow.
At night, I couldn't even see the other person. And I just heard Heather, and I was like, what? Like, am I going to get robbed? And because like Republic of Freedom was so popular, because I espoused this idea that like the whole brand concept was, we all have a different version of what freedom looks like to us. Your version of freedom is different from mine. So let's all create our own little universe that works brilliantly for our own needs. Like forget the matrix, forget the working world, forget what you've been told. Like let's get down to brass tacks and create the life that works for you. And I blogged weekly for 6 years. You know, like I was really.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, it's nuts. And so all of my retreats and everything were run under that brand, under the Republic of Freedom.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And but you know, I evolved out of it. Out of it. And actually, the first photo shoot that I had, once I had already been doing Thorkelson Consulting for a couple of years, but the first photo shoot I had sort of representing me now is the one that I did with you. Oh, so cool. It just goes to show that like 9 years in to working for myself, I was like, reset. I'm going to take everything I learned and I'm actually going to go in this direction, you know? And so it is so important to remember that for anyone listening, especially if you're in the early stages of your business. No one's expecting you to know exactly what your business looks like and exactly what your brand should be. We just need a place to work from, like a starting point, right? Mm-hmm. It is going to change. That's a guarantee. But we need to know who you are, and we need to know what you stand for. Like, yes, values, but what do you stand for? What do you not stand for? If you go to my website, I'm very clear. I swear, there's a clause in there that says, like, you know, if you're into like magical thinking, we're not going to work well together. If you're into dude bro marketing, we're not going to work well together. Like I'm explicit, you know, because
this is the other thing about this. Do it, right? You don't want to have somebody come in and then be upset because you weren't the right person for them. You are already like putting a disclaimer saying, this is what I am, take it or leave it. Yeah.
Exactly. And like you said earlier, someone critiqued you and said, well, what are you doing? Babies or weddings, or what are you doing? That's really useful feedback. But the other bit of useful feedback that will happen naturally if you're not specific is you will get clients that should not be your clients. And those are really good learning opportunities, because I'm like, okay, so nightmare client, what are the things about this person that I do not want to have again in my business? And how do I make sure that I communicate that through my brand, through my social media? It can be through social media posts, but it can also be through your branding. So to give you an example, I know a business coach who is all about rainbows and unicorns, and she literally has unicorns and glitter all over her website. And if I was looking for a business coach, I like her, she's great. But if I was looking for a business coach, we're not
I
a good
probably
fit.
wouldn't either. But
we're not a good fit.
Yeah,
I'm sure she's great at what she does, but I can see just visually from the brand, not a good fit. So,
right, exactly. We have somebody here. I think this is odd. I can't see your name, but this is agreed. Sometimes I have to stop myself if a job seems too taxing, complicated, low budget. Is this a direction I want to go in? Is this job worth it for me? Ask if I want to do it ask if I want to do it other than just being happy they want me. Yeah. I think in the beginning, it's like, yay, I got somebody asking you, like to hire me for something. And you just want to do it because you're like, I need to do it.
You're like, well, someone wants to pay me money.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to say no to money. But I think at some point, like, the more experience you get, the more you can say no, because I think you learn who's going to be the right person to work with you. So you have just as much power as the client who's contacting you, because you get to choose. And in my mindset a while back when I first started, I had the mindset of like, I don't get to choose. I didn't even understand that until I started diving into branding. And I was like, oh my God, this is like mind blowing. I'm like, I can choose. Like, this is amazing. Okay. So now I'm making my life work for me versus like, so really I started writing down like, what do I want for myself to make it work for me? Like my lifestyle. Cause I have 2 kids. I can't I can't be photographing weddings. To me, like spending my whole weekend photographing somebody's wedding, I mean, it would be nice, but I wouldn't get back that time with my family, and during the week they're in school and stuff. So for me, I had to like find a way to make my life work for my schedule. And I think that's the beautiful part about being a business owner and like discovering that part. I didn't know that I could do that, because when I started the business, I was just trying to do everything for everybody. And I was like, this is not fun. So I really
and also there's financial scarcity as well, right? I mean, that's a real thing. You have to take the money where it's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. That too.
Which is kind of good, because then you have to work with some nightmare clients and learn how much you hate it and learn from that experience. But the other piece of that as well is that you can divorce clients. That's okay too. And it's funny because recently, like my sister, who's become a business owner since she lost her job due to COVID, she's an interior designer now. And some of my clients that I have in one of my group programs, they've had to get rid of real problem clients recently. So we've been like drafting letters of like, how do you divorce a client in a way that isn't going to make them angry, and also in a way that's really fair and for good reason, right? So there's that. It's like who you don't want to work with, and then also once you're accidentally already working with one, how do you extricate yourself from that scenario?
Yeah, exactly. We also have another question. I'm a model and need more visibility. How? Agencies abroad wants me to live in the country. So you.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I know this is odd. Odd. Hi. Yeah. So you're going to have to just write down I would just write down a bunch of ideas of how you can get more visible in front of the people that you want to work with. Like literally write down like which agencies you want to work with or which magazines, and then try to find like a way to get in front of them, create content. Let's see. Okay, I don't know if this is the same person. Okay.
Yeah.
This is odd. How could I extend my incomes? Because just modeling is not enough. Too much concurrence for the moment. I'm 40 plus model. and promote healthy, happy aging. I don't want to deal with products because freedom for me is to have less things and travel. Well, I mean, you could go into influencing. So you could be modeling on the side and then do influencing, like, and I feel like people get like this bad rep when I say influencer. But being an influencer is basically just, backing up what you believe in. So like if there's a product that you love, you just back it up because you believe in that product. So I feel like there's always like this feeling like, oh, I'm going to be an influencer. But you just have to start like finding a way to create content that makes you become an authority in something. So if you're like working with 40 plus models or 40-year-olds and up, you can really start to think about like, what are the struggles of somebody who's 40 years old? I know, because I'm 40. I could be your, market research, but you have to write down who your dream like customer would be, who would follow you to like learn more, and just keep putting yourself out there. I see that Odd is like really showing up on social media. I see her doing like posts all the time. And I would suggest like, don't only rely on Instagram, really create blog posts. I mean, I try to spread out like the content because that's where you're going to be found. So like use Pinterest, use your website, use Instagram. So don't only put all your eggs in one basket to get like the visibility. I think that's really important to think about. And I think I talk about this in my online course about like, you have to find maybe a couple platforms that you really think you can use. And like, when you create one piece of content, like let's say for your blog, you can distribute that in so many different ways. And like Pinterest right now, it's like crazy. You just put a pin up there and it's a search engine. It's going to help people to find you. You just have to learn how to create like the headlines that are going to, be easier to find you. And I don't know. What do you think, Heather? Do you have any?
Yeah, for sure. I think all of your suggestions are really smart. To me, the key here is absolutely content, right? It's visibility and content, especially because you're a model. You work in a visual medium, right? That's really important. So in terms of, I'm a model, I need more visibility. How agencies abroad don't want me to live, or they want me to live in that country. Well, that's not going to happen, is it? Like that's not a controllable for you. You don't live in that country. Sorry for them. So how do you then become the model that's so good they can't ignore you? How do you then become the model that people say, we don't care that you don't live in the country of our agency, we want to fly you in for this job because we already know you're the one, right? You've somehow made it very clear that you're the best person for the job. So that's what I would say in response to that. There's so many things like that, like, the agency wants me to live in that country. What can you do, right? You can only control the things that are within your control. The second piece, how can I extend my incomes because modeling isn't enough? I love the fact that you're a 40 plus model. I'm 40 plus also. And I love it because although it is a growing niche, it's still a niche, right? There's not nearly as many 40 plus models as there are models under 40. So you have an opportunity there. To me, I'm just like, oh, awesome, great, okay, like what can we do with that, right? And again, it goes back to that idea of like, how do you become so good at the stories that you're sharing, at the way that you're showing up in your content, at the way that you're talking about modeling or being, 40 plus, promoting healthy aging, that kind of thing. Get people to interact with your content, because it's not just about you getting the attention of agencies that might hire you. It's about, as you said, Jessica, to some degree, becoming an influencer. Like, how do you get all of us 40 plus people following you and saying, I love what she's putting out there. Like, it's so real. It's like, it resonates with me. It's really helpful. Grow that audience, grow that audience. Also, because if you grow the audience, then the agencies can't ignore you.
Yeah. And Odd, I don't know if you I know that you were thinking about making a new website. If you take all those magazine articles that you have been featured in and you put that on your website, when people are looking up the names of the magazines, the fashion brands that like the clothing that you were wearing. So like anytime you go on a photo shoot, write down who you are wearing so that you can tag them in your photos. This is just going to get them to notice you. So like there's this Swedish model. She's like 70 years old and she's like in Olens. She's in everything. I mean, she's like everywhere. And she's picked all the time. So you could also be like her. I can find who she is. I'm sure you know who she is. It's Ingmar or something like that. And she's literally everywhere. So she's irresistible to everyone. So if you could find a way to, you know, what I always say, like, look at the history of somebody and how they got to where they are, because there are clues in between that can just be like, oh, if I just do this one thing, maybe this will open the door to the next thing. And I think that if you can use that model, like the idea of that, maybe you can see how she got started, because actually this model, she was in Paris. She was modeling in Paris in the 60s or something like that. And then she came back to Sweden. She didn't model at all. And then she came back when she was older and not like, you know, like a supermodel looking girl. So, you know, you just have to you could even get in touch with her. She's like, I think super keen to like talking to people, and it's okay to ask for advice from someone. I wouldn't be afraid of doing that. If you want to know how to do it, how she did it in Sweden, I bet you she would give you some advice. Yes, her.
That's a really, really good point. That's a really good point. And I would add as well, because I was thinking about this earlier, anytime you're in a sort of unique corner of the market, find other people who are doing stuff that's similar to you. I know that you know, you're like, no, but then I'm going to compare and think, what's the point? Why am I even bothering? But just ignore that. Ignore those thoughts for a minute. The reason that you want to find those people is because you want to learn best practices from them. So, you know, to your point, how did she arise to where she is? But also, what's she doing now? Like, how are these other people in your sphere showing up consistently? Pick the things that you know. You don't have to do everything they're doing, because maybe like you hate video. Okay, fine, don't do video. But like, pick some of the things that you see that they're doing really consistently and that they're doing well, and then try to like assimilate that into your regular marketing, you know, activities, so that you can start to get traction for yourself.
Okay, so you tried to contact her through Instagram. Yeah, maybe she's getting contacted all the time. Find another way. Don't give up. I think that's the important thing. Don't give up. You know, somebody can say no twice and then say yes the third time. So definitely don't give up. Keep trying. You know, it's I think you have to have resilience when you have a business or want to do something. You have to just keep pushing forward. You never know when the yes comes.
I have a little story about that. So Seth Godin, who I'm hoping some of the people who are listening have heard of.
I know who he is. And I saw, okay, tell the story.
Yeah. So I adore the man. I mean, he is honestly, to me, one of the most forward-thinking people in the marketing world, and has been for many, many years, right? If you read about his history, you can see why. He's earned his credibility, and I love him. And I've taken the alt MBA that he does. I've done a lot of work, you know, that was spearheaded by him. Anyways, I have asked Seth for a lot of stuff over the years because I'm shameless. I'll just email him, be like, hi, Seth. I actually had a project earlier this year, or in early 2020, called Own Your Shit. And it was like the whole month, it was a new story every day about different entrepreneurs owning their shit. And it was so inspirational. And I pitched him. I was like, Seth, do you want to do an Own Your Shit video, or you want to be a part of my project? And he responds every time. He's such a nice guy. I don't know how he has the time. But he was like, oh, sounds like a great initiative, Heather. Not this time. Who am I? Like, this guy probably gets 200 emails a day, you know, but he takes the time to respond to everybody. And so I've probably asked him to be a part of things, something random, 4 or 5 times in the history of my connection with Seth Godin, or me following him like a crazy fangirl. And then I finished my book last June or whenever it was. And I messaged him and I said, Seth, do you want to read my book? And maybe endorse it if you like it. And I mean, this is like the godfather of entrepreneurship and marketing, right? I mean, people all over the world follow him rabidly. And it was such a shot in the dark. I was like, there's no way. And he wrote back to me and he's like, Heather, I'm pretty busy, but I'll see what I can do. No promises. And I was like, oh my God. And then he sent me a link to this blog post he did about endorsements. And he was like, I get pitched hundreds of books every year, and I only endorse a few. And if I don't endorse yours, don't get angry about it. Like, get over it,
Yeah.
In a nice way he said it. And I was like, okay. I'm like, so the likelihood is like this much. Anyways, 2 weeks later, he sends me an endorsement and he was like, the book was awesome. Here's my paragraph. You can put it on the front of your book. You can use it on Amazon, but do not use it anywhere else. You can't use it on Facebook ads. You can't use it only on the front of the book and only on Amazon. And I was like, oh my God! So all this to say, don't give up, head for the top, keep asking, take as many no's as you need to take until you get the yes. Because him saying yes to a book endorsement was a million times more valuable than any of the other things I asked him for me as a business owner, right?
Yes. Yeah. I love that. That's such a great story. So yes, don't give up. Okay, so I have something here. My main clients are production heads, production companies, and photographers. I feel like the clients are so specific, not people who might necessarily follow me on social media unless they are my clients. How to attract them besides just showing off my work and big clients? Kim. Kim, our makeup artist.
Hi, Kim.
Yeah. Heather, do you want to take this one? Do you want to try it? Can you read it from your end? I don't know.
I'm reading it. I'm just trying to think through it for a second. Main clients or production. Well, the thing is
make your website like a lot more about like the companies then, because I know you've been saying like, I need to update my website. I need to do it. And I know you're very busy. Kim is a very good makeup artist here in Stockholm, and she is always booked. So she doesn't have time. But then if you don't have the time, Kim, have somebody do it for you. Like somebody who is in your price range that can actually turn your website around, that actually is speaking to those production heads, the production companies, if that's who you want to work with the most, instead of like getting people who want just like modeling, makeup. Or I think your website can really convert more people if it speaks to them. So I would even create blog posts, because those blog posts are searchable. So if they're looking for a makeup artist that's working with production, use those words that they would be searching, and put those into like your blog posts. And also like even the photos that you upload into your website, those keywords are searchable. So if you're just putting up pictures on your website with like Kim Ikonen, it's like, you have to be so specific looking for Kim, unless like I'm just looking for a makeup artist who knows how to work with production or commercial, so you really need to be thoughtful of how you are uploading your images online as well. So those are things that could help people find you a little bit more easily if that's who you're wanting to work with. So
yeah, I agree completely. All that SEO stuff on the back end is key, and maybe even leveraging something like Pinterest because of the searchability of it, or YouTube, because I've seen Kim upload some little video clips and stuff to Instagram, that if you made like a little YouTube montage or something and put in those keywords, because also Kim is location specific, right? Like she works in and around Stockholm, or in Sweden anyways. And so being able to use those keywords that are specific to the geography where she works are really key. And one other thing I would say, just to add on to that, I see there's another question, is that production heads, production companies, there's always a person within that company, right? Production heads, photographers, they're all consuming social media. So don't forget that what you're posting on Instagram is being seen by those human beings, right? So how can you then also think about the messaging that could speak to them and make it clear that you're available, right? That you're like, here, hire me. This is how you do it. Here, you've been following my body of work. I'm ready. Here's where you sent. Go check it. And to your point, gearing the website towards the people who are actually going to spend money on you. Very key.
Yeah, definitely. And I use InShot to create video montages, and it's super easy. You just download it onto your phone and you can just pop things in. You can put music in there. They give you some music choices, not a lot, but you can write text over it. So you can actually get people to read it if they have the sound off. And like give a call to action. I feel like so many people forget to say, contact me, book me. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Even if it's silent, at least you're putting it out there. Because like in my course, I talk about like how I use social media and how I've booked clients through social media just by one post. And the thing is like, you have to give them a call to action so that they can respond. And like, even if they don't respond, like a year later, I had somebody contact me from a post that I put like months and months and months, prior. And I was like, who really goes that far back and then asks a question, So you never know. So even if people aren't responding to your posts, don't get down. Don't feel like, oh, this isn't working. Like, this is stupid. I keep doing this and nobody's contacting me. You never know who's going to be the right person who stumbles onto your page or whatever. So just keep going. Even with the crickets. I have 2 Instagrams. So I have like my photography, which I've built up and I put a lot of time and effort into it. So I have my good community there and I get a lot of interaction. But my new one, which is like my branding one, it's barely getting any traction, but I've just started to build it because I realized I wanted to separate these 2 things because it was really hard to just only talk about photography and branding. And so I wanted to create a distinction on social media with that, but it still goes back to my main website. So if you can find a way to like, get people to take action to something, it's going to help. So, okay, I don't know when you have to go, Heather. I know we've been going on for a while. So let's answer one more question, and then I think maybe we should wrap it up. This was really great, though. I'm loving the questions. When creating blog posts, is there a suggested length of an article? Yeah, I think there's some best practices for it. You basically, I don't remember how much it is, but if you can have like links in there that link back to something else, those are things that I think Google ranks for their searchability and stuff. So did she write something else? When creating a couple of different brand businesses, how can you leverage the cross-following to piggyback those who follow? I have my main social media where I talk about being a mom, daily life, and abroad. Then I have a brand making personalized gifts and apparel. Finally, I want to create a profile and a blog that promotes traveling with kids, tips, tricks, words. Yeah, I mean, I think having those things separated, if you have like your business and then your mom life, because you don't want to confuse people and be like, what do I do? So I know it's hard to, I'm doing 2 social medias and it isn't very easy because sometimes I'm like, wait, who else is following me on both pages and how annoying am I like creating double content of the same thing that they're seeing? But I knew I had to separate the 2 because I knew like they had 2 very different ideal customers. And I think when you have 2 very different ideal customers, you have to separate the content, because if not, people will be like, wait, she's talking about this thing one day and then another day she's talking about this. And so like with my photography, I do branding, but I also do other kinds of photos. Like I do commercial work as well. So I felt like if I put only like branding and that together, it was going to be very confusing. So I had to choose to separate. But you can always have the links going back to your main website if that's where everything is going to be. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading through this again, and to answer Ashley's first question when creating blog posts, is there a suggested length of an article? There's 2 schools of thought on this. One is that people have very short attention spans, so you should keep it under 500 words and make it really high value with action tips. And the second school of thought, both are valid, so it's what you want to do. The second school of thought, and this is proven, is that long form posts are really effective in terms of getting people to read and getting people to engage further with you and getting them to click your backlinks to other stuff. But with the caveat that you have to take them on some kind of a journey. You can't just be like writing like you're writing in your journal, right? Like take them on a journey of transformation. What is this topic? Like, where are we going with this? Use some really salient subheadings. So if they start to scan, then they stop on a subheading that makes them want to read that section. So there isn't a right or wrong answer there in my experience anyways. It just depends on what you want to create, what are you most comfortable with, because both can work really well depending on your business. And then in terms of creating a couple of different brands, it sounds like being the social media where you talk about being a mom and daily life living abroad. Then you said, I want to create a profile and blog that promotes traveling with kids. I
Similar.
would just consider melding those two ideas or
Yeah.
transforming what you currently have into traveling with kids as opposed to making an entirely third entity, because that is
Mhm.
going to leave you feeling pretty spread pretty thin. But because like, so assuming that you would consider that, then you have the one thing on the side that's like mom, kids, living abroad, traveling, and then personalized gift and apparels. What I would do is probably leverage things like Instagram stories, for example. So on the mom, kids, travel, living abroad thing, you can do Instagram stories saying, hey, check out my stuff over here. I make personalized gifts. So it's not part of like the grid of what you're primarily promoting, but you're
Mhm.
mentioning it in the way that you're interacting with your followers in that fleeting way, right? In Instagram
And showing the
stories.
product in action, right? So like if you're selling a product, I mean, you're showing how you actually use it. That
Yeah,
is branding. And it's the easiest form of branding because you're not selling it. You're not like, buy my mug. You're like, oh gosh, today I'm having a coffee, and you're not selling. You're just showing it in action, and then people are like, oh, what's that? I like it. I want it. So
exactly.
yeah, good. I'm glad we could help. Awesome. You know what? I mean, we could keep going, but now it's like we've gone on for a while. I love this topic, and like I know we kind of didn't get everywhere. So if we could just like wrap this up and just give like maybe some tips on like maybe owning our shit. I know in Heather's book she talks about this. I wrote this down because I thought these were really good. You have this thing where you're like, in the book you're like, write down your strengths and your weaknesses, and I think that is a really great tip for like knowing like how you can start to understand like what you can deliver on, and that will help you to not feel the fear of like you know owning what you have and putting yourself out there. I think that would probably help people a lot. I don't know if you want to really go deep on that, but if not, buy Heather's book and she can help walk you through it. It's No Plan B. I'm going to plug it here.
Awesome.
But it's really great. I love the book. So if you guys are feeling a little bit like you need some direction, the book has a lot of really great tools that you can use for your business. If not, contact Heather. She would love to work with you. And but you give these tips on like trying to find your strengths and your weaknesses, and that also helps with finding clarity, right? So
Absolutely, yeah. There's a bunch of stuff that I go through, and also just so everyone knows, you can go to my website heatherthorkelson.com, and you can opt in to get the first chapter for free, which is it's a juicy chapter in and of itself. So you can check out like, is this the kind of thing that do I like what she's saying? Do I want to get? So you don't have to buy the book right away. You can just get a taster, and I do really ask some salient questions in there that help you get really oriented around how you want to show up, who you want to be as a business owner. A big thing for me beyond like strengths and weaknesses is moving towards what gives you energy. So, a lot of people decide on a thing. They're like, here's my thing, here's my passion, but they actually feel really like sucked dry when they go deep into it. And so whenever I'm working with people, I'm always like, okay, if this is really draining you, which part of this whole ecosystem you've created is giving you the most energy? And they're like, well, I love this and I love working with these people. I'm like, boom, then we go in that direction. So it's really about helping you navigate all the different things that you have to navigate as an entrepreneur and finding the path that works best for you and the path of least resistance, because we want you to enjoy this, right? I mean, you went into this to enjoy your life more, to feel more freedom, to feel more agency, to feel like you have control over what you can do and how you can spend your days. We don't want that to be bogged down by shit that you hate, right? And we don't want it to be bogged down by you trying to pretend to be someone that you're not because you think that's how you're supposed to show up. Nobody's supposed to show up anyway, right? Like, you're supposed to show up as you. And there are a number of different people who I've seen do that really well, that are like not cookie cutter, perfectly branded whomever. I mean, they've got great brands, but they're very much themselves. And so the last thought that I would like to leave people with is, when you're out there on the internet and you're on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, take note of the people you're following that are kind of quirky or just a little bit different or really walking to the beat of their own drum. People who are entrepreneurs, who are, solopreneurs, whatever, branding experts, coaches, that kind of thing. And notice what makes you notice them. because that's where the gold is, right? Like what makes them them? What makes you you? And when you start to feel that freedom of like, oh right, I can be the cat mug lady, or I can be the unicorn coach, or I can be the sweary like Canadian lady in Sweden, or what, you know, whatever. Like it's okay
Yeah.
to be that. So look for the examples that inspire you to really be more of you, and it's only going to reward you. It's only going to come back in spades.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for leaving us with that, Heather. This was a great chat, and we will be doing more chats. Well, I will be inviting more people. So, you know, I want people to find these beneficial and get help. You know, this is what it's about, is like giving back to people. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to help people get the answers that they're looking for, because sometimes you just need one little answer and it can help shift something that people need. So, and if you want to know more about Heather, I think I put your website in the comments in one of the posts, but I will put it here at the end, and then you guys can check out Heather and follow her on Instagram. Find her there. I don't know how much you're using it to promote yourself, but you can stay in touch through Instagram or Facebook. So great. Thank you, everybody.
Definitely.
I'm going to sign off here and say goodbye. Thank you, Heather, for giving us
Thank
your time.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye.